Hello, good day. We would be talking about quadratic equations today. Quadratic equations. They are equations of the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where the a, which represents the coefficient of the quadratic term, is not equal to 0. And a is a coefficient. A, b, and c are real numbers. Real numbers, meaning that they could be fractions, they could be integers, they could be anything. So this is equal to 0 for quadratic equation. Now an example include, I could have x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. I could have 2x squared minus 5x minus 3 equals 0. Now, in the first example here, a is equals to 1, the coefficient of the quadratic term, b is equals to 5, and c is equals to 6. Here, my a is 2, b is equals to minus 5, coefficient of the linear term, and c is equals to minus 3. Now, we could have even quadratic term that could be, quadratic equations that could be x squared minus 4 equals 0. We could have it like this. We could have it to even be x squared equals 0. So far, a in this case is equals to 1, b is 0, and c is equals to minus 4. Whereas a here is 1, and b is 0, and c is equals to 0. The only coefficient in the quadratic equation that cannot be allowed to be 0 is a. The first one there is a. So in solving quadratic equations, we have several methods. The first method is a factorization method. We could use completing the square method. We could use the formula method. However, the completing the square method leads to the formula method. And then we could solve it using a graphical method. So there are about 4 methods which we can use to solve a quadratic equation. So we'll start with the factorization method. So here, factorization. In the factorization method, we all know that from what we have said earlier, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So it works by the principle that when I multiply two positive numbers together to get 0, this implies that a is equal to 0 or b is equal to 0. So we try to factorize the quadratic equation into its factors. That is, what are the two algebraic terms that must be multiplied together to give me the quadratic term. So if I can get that, I will equate one to 0 or the other one to be 0, because for two numbers to have been multiplied to give us 0, and that means one is 0 or the other one is 0. So let's try with this example. Let us factorize x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. Now, the first step is to what? Look at what? The coefficient of the quadratic term. What's my a in this case? That's a, is 1. When the coefficient of the quadratic term is 1, I can use what I want to do now. I'll go back to the constant term, which is 6 here. Then I can say that I have plus 6 as my constant term. And I'll look for numbers that I can, the factors of what? 6. I know that I can say 1 times 6. I can say 2 times 3. I think that's all. The other ones are just repetitions of what I have here. It could also be 6 times 1, or it could also be 6 times 1 or 3 times 2, which are just repetition of what I already have here. Now, for me to get a positive number, for me to get a positive number in my multiplication, it must be that when the two factors must be positive. So I know that positive times more positive is equals to positive, or I have negative times negative to give me
Positive.
negative. So for all these factors, I could have them to be what? Plus 1 plus 6, or minus 1 minus 6, or I have it to be plus 2 plus 3, or I have it to be what? Minus 3 minus 2. Those are the possible ways I can multiply together to get plus 6. That's the first step. Then I will look at all of this. Which one is it when added will give me plus 5? When I add it together, I will have plus 5 in the middle. Which one is it? Let's try with the first one. This one, 1 plus 6 is 7, so this would not work. 2 plus 3 is 5. Wow, I think this would work. But let's try another one. Minus 6 plus minus 1, that's going to be minus 7. And minus 3 plus minus 5, this is minus 2, it will be what? Minus 5. So this and this would not work. It's only this that would work. So what we go ahead and solve this. Now, instead of me writing plus 5x in the middle as a middle term, as a linear term, I would replace it with what? This. And that will be what? Plus 2x plus 3x plus 6 equals 0. Now it's very important we find out the factors that would multiply to give us the constant term, and when added will give us the linear term. That is the crux of solving a quadratic equation using the factorization method. So now the next thing is to group the expressions in twos. So I start like this: x squared plus 2x. I separate with a positive sign. I have 3x plus 6 equals 0. So here, look at what is common. I can see x is common to the 2. When I bring out my x, I'm left with what? X plus 2. Then here, 3x and 6, I have what? 3 to be common. I'm left with what? X plus 2 equals to 0. Now, one thing you should note, when you factorize like this and the expressions in the brackets are not the same, it suggests that you are wrong, because what you have in the bracket must be the same for this to work. So you have x, I can now bring this together, x plus 3 into bracket x plus 2 to be equals to 0. Now remember, we said that if a times b is equals to 0, then that means a is equals to 0 or b is equals to 0. Then we can now say a plus 3 is equals to 0, or x plus 2 equals 0. It's either this is equal to 0 or this is equal to 0. So solving this, x will be equals to minus 3, or x is equals to what? Minus 2. And that solves the equation. And what these are called the what? The roots. They are called the roots of the quadratic equation, or the solution of the quadratic equation. So by substituting these values into the quadratic equation that we were given, we would get 0. We would get 0. Or let's take two more examples that would involve us switching the signs. Let's see that.